Today I have to send off my sketchbook for the sketchbook project, so I thought I'd take a few minutes and flip through it for anybody who might not be able to make it to one of the shows. My theme is lines and grids, so I made a title page for the book. And the rest of the pages all have different drawings and sketches that are somehow based on lines and grids. I used regular graphite pencil and also colored pencil in this book. This is my very first drawing. I didn't work through the book page by page sequentially. Instead, I just sort of opened it at random and put drawings where I felt like they should go. This drawing is based on stones and the shape that their shadows make. This is my abstract pine branches drawing. And this drawing is inspired by a book that I found on gems and minerals. And this, I came across a set of my dad's old compasses and decided to use that in my book. I have a few pages that are made using compasses. And this one, when I first got the book, it came with these a few of the pages were creased and wrinkled. And so for one of the compositions, I decided I wanted to incorporate that into the layout of the page. So that's where the shape comes from. This is another drawing that is based on the shape of stones, as is this one. It's sort of a variation on that theme. This is a more direct interpretation of lines and grids, but I like this one. It sort of reminds me of a loom that is, set up and ready for weaving. These are 7-pointed stars, and I like this drawing because it's sort of confusing and you just want to look at it and maybe find your way through the maze or figure it out. This drawing is based on the begonia sketch that I'd done before. I did this in color and then added some grid and line work in the background. This one also sort of reminds me of a loom, like one that's been sort of disheveled and torn apart and the threads are falling. Here's another inspired drawing from the Gem and Mineral book. And this one I wanted to see if I could emulate the way that variegated yarn looks and the way that the colors blend in, and the color pencils did pretty well with this. They blend quite nicely. This is probably one of my favorite pages in the book. This is another compass drawing and just sort of a little bit more random. And I really love the way that the lines intersect and the different shapes that are created, and there's really a lot to see if you take a minute to look at it. Here's an abstract floral drawing or pattern that I did early on, sort of a floral motif. This was based on a cell phone tower that I was passing slowly while I was sitting in traffic. I was just interested in the way that the bars crossed and how the shapes changed as I went by, and I wanted to include that in my book. This one sort of evolved as I was working. I wanted to do these sort of skewed blocks of grid, and as I was working on it, for some reason it reminded me of school notebook paper. So that's when I added in the pink and the blue to sort of make it look a little bit more like that. So this is my sort of unusable notebook paper drawing. This one is also one of my favorites. It turned out to be a dream catcher. This is another one that sort of evolved. Started with circles that I used a compass to draw. Then I added these little dots all along the edge of the circles and connected them with lines to create that medallion in the center. And after I added the lines on the outside, that's when it really became a dream catcher for me, and I added the feathers on the bottom. I'm not sure where this inspiration for this actual drawing came. I remember I wanted to do another multicolor drawing, and it just sort of evolved. This is based on a grid. This is maybe one of my least favorite drawings, only because it's kind of a direct, and I can't even say interpretation. I copied a pattern from a weaving and tapestry book. This is a pretty traditional embroidery pattern. I tried to make it a little bit more unique and a little bit more my own. I don't know how well you can see it. You can see the lines here, but on some of the shapes I added a little bit of texture to make them look a little bit like feathers. I like it. It's just not my most original idea ever. I've been drawing a lot of pretzels lately, and as I was drawing this book, it sort of occurred to me that pretzels are really like lines of dough that are just twisted around into different shapes, so it seemed like they earned a place in the Lines and Grid book. So I arranged these on a grid, and there's 24 pretzels for you to look at and enjoy. This is another one that sort of evolved. I drew these sort of scallop shapes, and after I got halfway down the page, I wanted to get sort of drawing inspiration from the one drawing that had sort of the broken threads or whatever you would call it. I wanted to make that texture again. In the end, I think it almost looks like it could be plumage or feathers or something like that, but that's where the inspiration came from. This one again was drawn with compass, and I added some lines and some other texture, and this is probably one of the more sculptural drawings that I have in here. I could totally see it as a sculpture. Here's another one that looks very much like a rug, another tapestry. This is probably another one of my most favorite pages. It's on the simple side, but I think sometimes simple is can be the nicest. These are based on 6-sided shapes, and then I added, like, sort of cut the corners to make triangles and added some shading, and just really love the rhythm of this one. I think I'm gonna do a series of this. This one, when it was done, it totally reminded me of the cell phone tower drawing, but it wasn't based on that at all. It was based on another drawing I'd done before, which once I had added these different textures and colors, like it looks totally different, and I was a little bit surprised by the result. Not to say that I don't like it, but it's just a very different outcome from what I started with. And this one, it might sound a little funny, but it sort of came to me in a dream. Or when I was waking up, I had this image in my mind's eye of clouds with spider webs in them, and so I decided that I would draw that. This was based on a previous drawing that I'd done before. I reinterpreted it and sort of arranged it in a pattern and added some different colors. This was inspired by a photograph of these windows that were sort of, all the edging was in orange, and it was against this gray brick background. It was a really striking image, and at this point I see a lot of different things, like little huts and paths that lead to them, and turtle shells and windows and all kinds of things. This one's kind of interesting. I decided to draw this based on the length of my pencils. Like, as I've been working on this, the colored pencils get eaten up really quickly, and some of them are teeny tiny. They're like these little stubs of things. So this one is my shortest one, and I line them up based on their length, and so the way that the colors are arranged and everything is totally random and based on how long the pencils were. And so you can see some of them were closer to the same height, so I just sort of made them the same. And what I like about this page, which I unfortunately don't think you're going to be able to see on the video, is the way that the paper is translucent. You can actually see the drawing in the background from the next page, and that's actually why I didn't add anything else into that center area, because it has this sort of like mountain shape here that when you're in person you'd be able to see this sort of like coming through, and it's pretty neat looking. This one was based on, I don't know, I was just trying to do like this, you know, branching shape. And I developed a pattern where I started with 3 and 3 based on a grid, how long it was, and then, you know, each of these is a little bit different. It goes like down 2 and over 1, down 2 and over 2, down 2 and over 3. So over 3 is yellow, over 2 is blue, over 1 is orange. And I just continued that pattern throughout. I hope that makes sense, but in any case, it sort of was completely unexpected what I was going to end up with. It's kind of a neat drawing. I like this one. This one I just started with these fan shapes and then connected them and added this extra line work here, and it sort of reminds me like a tensile tent structure. You could see this sort of like as a ceiling overhead. This was obviously drawn with a compass, and it sort of reminds me almost of Art Deco decoration, and I love the combination of yellow and gray, so I'm glad that this one worked out to include those colors. And this one was, as I was working on it, I felt like it was kind of a cop-out, because I just did, to begin with, I only did these color blocks, and it was just these two. They're actually, it's hard to see here, but it's 2 different tones, like 2 different color pencils that are sort of the same color family. but it was very uninteresting when I was finished, and so I had to go back. I decided I had to go back and add in some more interest with just regular graphite, and I added the gray pencil lines. I think it helps it a whole lot. This is one of the last ones that I did, and just to be honest, I actually like made the lines so wide here just to save time, sort of working under the deadline. But this is a shape I often use, this little pod shape, and just sort of did a nice pattern with it. I actually really like it in the end, even with the big space between it. I did this one last night, and I have to be honest, it's kind of creeps me out a little bit. Like, I'm not sure if it's because the texture is sort of like reptiles, or if it's the way that the points meet here, or what it is, but I was trying to think of ideas of how I could color it in to make it look a little bit more cheerful, but I really couldn't. I don't know, I just couldn't decide on anything, so I think I'm gonna leave it as is, and sometimes things are a little creepy, and that's okay. So to offset that a little bit, I decided I wanted my last page to be more celebratory, so I did these like swooping sash like shapes, sort of maybe something that you might hang up at a party. And yeah, this is my last page, and it's sort of like my celebratory page, and I'm very happy to be finished. This is a great project. It was a lot of work, but I'm really excited to send it off, and I'm excited for people to look through it, and I hope that people enjoy it. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit longer, on the longer side, but yeah, that's my sketchbook project, sketchbook, and that's it. Thank you.